Well, hello. Welcome back to our 75th of these Three Old Friends Music Never Ends videos. I'm Mike, and I'll let them introduce themselves, but Dave and Jose are here. And so this is our 75th, and they were kind enough to uh, allow what is the word I'm looking for? Well, to go along with my obsession with the band, Steely Dan. And so we're doing a whole playlist of Steely Dan songs. We've had quite a few previously. I think most of them from Royal Scam for whatever reason. But yeah, so briefly with me, and then we'll talk to you guys. I have liked the band for a long time, and I'm sure I'll get into the details about it. But they, I don't know, they just. They do it for me. And do it again. That's a song of theirs. If you don't know, watching this anyway, the name comes from a marital aid in the book The Naked Lunch. If you didn't know that, Steely Dan, and if you want, I can read that portion of
You
the thing.
know,
But if
yeah.
you know anything about The Naked Lunch, you might not want it if children will be watching.
So it
Um,
was,
Anyway, so we'll go more into it, but what about you guys? What do you think about the playlist?
uh, I'm going to admit it. I had to get this through my mind. It is like me. I have to put myself in y'all shoes, like when you guys had to like pick the Grateful Dead. Like you guys know songs from the Grateful Dead, but you're not, like Mike said, obsessed with the Grateful Dead like I am, so to speak. And so you have to indulge it. So for me, and Steely Dan is one of those bands that's really on my peripheral. I know the hits. We all know the hits. So this was actually kind of a learning lesson in 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 uh, in Steely Dan for me. And so when in doubt, I would go to my cult leader, Trey Anastasia, because he was the one who inducted them into the Songwriting Hall of Fame in 2024, and said, "Well, what does he think about them that he thinks is so vital?" And he writes about, and I agreed with this in his speech. He wrote about it's not just the music, which was innovative, and we can talk more about that as we get into it. But it was the characters that they brought and the songwriting that they brought forward, and that's what's captivating. That's what kind of separated them from other songs in that era, in that genre. And we can all talk about whether this is yacht rock or not. But anyway. So I learned a lot. Is it my favorite band? Is it ever going to be a favorite? Probably not. But a lot of great songs in there. You definitely headphone songs where you pick up a lot of instruments, a lot of things going on. So anyway,
So I could kind of say that I used to like Steely Dan a lot, and then we did this playlist, and not so much anymore. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Um, Actually, what I can say is that I wasn't into them like maybe Mike was. I started with the greatest hits, and you know how that is. A lot of people do that, right? When they start out, they go, "Oh wow, there's that Steely Dan greatest hits. I know 5 or 6 of those songs. Whatever, I'm going to buy that one, and I get that one, and then I kind of used that as a crutch for a while. And I was like, I got the greatest hits, man. Do I really want to buy that? I'll pick it Pretzel Logic for $7.99 at whatever the local record store was. And I went, nah, I got a couple of songs already on the greatest hits. And so I passed on it. And then I'd pass on it again. And then I'd go, oh, well, that one's $2.99. I think I picked up um, what Katie Lied was the next one I picked up. And it had a couple cool songs on it, and I picked that one up. And then after that, I think it was just I think I only had one other one. It was either uh, I think it was Aja. I think it was the one I had, or Gaucho, one of those two. I can't even remember, but that's all I had. Greatest hits and a couple of albums. It wasn't until we started doing this 2 years ago that Mike started putting on, even way back in the day when we made mixtapes, Mike would throw on a Steely Dan. And that's been my acculturation more to Steely Dan and going, wow, that's a really cool song. I need to go listen to the rest of the Royal Scam. Well, I didn't need to go listen to the rest of the Royal Scam because eventually he put almost every song from the Royal Scam on it. And then same thing a little bit with Pretzel Logic. But that's kind of my indoctrination to Steely Dan. So I'm not like I didn't know a lot of these songs, and in preparation for this, it was still kind of the same way. So I listened to some of the deeper tracks on much of the Steely Dan albums to come up with the ones I wanted to put on this playlist. And some of them were the hits and the things that I wanted to get out there to make sure we got. But there were a couple of them that I came across some gems and said, man, I never heard this song before. It's going on the list. So anyway,
Okay, before you start, Mike, this is probably your album, Dave. This is the greatest hits album, and this is probably yours because I also own Aja. So there's only one reason I would own both of these.
okay. Well, I had the one in the lower corner here, the greatest hits. I had that the double album.
Yeah.
That's the one I know I had. I don't know if I had the other one. Why would I buy
I had gold.
greatest
I don't
hits?
know if I still do, but I had gold at
Yeah,
some
and
point.
I'm sure they're yours. Anyway,
Yeah, so just jumping right into it. We didn't do this. We could have done this like sequentially. We got every album but one on here, but I blew it from the beginning with the sequential thing because I started with their second album, and which is Countdown to Ecstasy. And the song is Bodhisattva, which is, if I understand correctly, well, it's from Buddhism, but it's a person, if I understand correctly, who renounces, their earthly possessions in order to have I don't know, get closer to nirvana. If I was a Buddhist, I could explain it better. But to be, I don't know, pure of heart or whatever. Anyway, I put it on, well, about the theme. It was kind of a lot of their songs, there's snark behind it, or, looking askance at a particular group or behavior. And then there's some darker subjects we can get into later. But this is, I think, from what and let me say this, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around. Their lyrics are cryptic to about everybody but them. They almost never comment on them. Well, it's only Donald Fagen now, but so a lot of it's people. There's like people who are fans. It's just like that's a big part of that discussions on what is this song about and arguments, and there's wide ideas about it. So I may or may not be right on some of my guesses on what these songs are about. But anyway, I think it was kind of a swipe at they were living in the West Coast at this time and kind of new agey, hippie kind of you know, people embracing some of this stuff. I'm going to give it my second house, my house in town or whatever, things like that. So I put it on less for that than I wanted something kind of really rocked at the beginning, if you can call Steely Dan rocking, but they have some really hot guitar playing and, it's at this really driving beat. So, um, yeah, not much else I can say about it. Who was,
My turn.
Who
Yeah.
did do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's a good start to it. I was familiar with this song a little bit, not because of Countdown to Ecstasy. Was it on its greatest hits? I think it probably was. Uh,
Probably was the double album. It probably
yeah, that's
was.
probably where I first heard it. And so it's probably not my favorite Steely Dan track, but it's a good way to kick off the thing. It's a cool jam. I didn't know what Bodhisattva means or whatever, but um, yeah, not much more I could say about it, but it did. One thing is when we talked about that we could use songs that we've already previously played, and I'll just say, spoiler alert, we didn't. We went all fresh and new, which is kind of cool. There was 11 previous songs that we've done with Steely Dan. And that's a fairly high number per artist, so it's one of those ones that's up there, doesn't beat Fish or Grateful Dead. Jose's got that, and then me with like some, I don't know, Dan Fogelberg or Jerry Jeff Walker or something like that. But it's up there. 11's a lot, and so it kind of starts limiting what you can put on, and it kind of forces you to look at some different tunes and things like that. So more to follow on that, but I decided to lay that down. Is that we were constricted a little bit by the 11 songs. We weren't constricted, but we all chose not to duplicate anything. So on top of the 11, we got 15 new songs. So that's a pretty good catalog for Steely Dan.
Right. Well, yeah. Truth be told, we did run into like, hey, we wanted to use the song here. Oh, Mike reminds us quickly that we that we do that. So anyway, we can get to talk about that.
I will stop doing that. I will honestly, I'll stop doing that because I don't care if you guys use them or not.
Yeah, we don't care, but and I'm like Dave. There's too much out there to be passing out. We can't find a song that we haven't used, and especially with Steve Dan, what I count, they have 11 albums, or at least on Apple, 11 albums that you can choose from. So plenty of great songs, and we discover a bunch of them on here. That's how I did it. You asked in the on the messenger, how'd y'all pick these songs? That sounds good. Oh, that looks good. Oh, that might be, some of the songs. Now, again, some of the hits, obviously, I put on, which I'll get to in a second, was it. But before I get to mine, let me talk about Mike's song, which every time, with the first three times, every time I start this, I'm thinking, did I put on the right thing? Is this the Police? Because, man, they had to have influenced them. And, I'll talk a little bit about, obviously this Steely had influenced a lot of groups. They were one of the first to bring in that jazz fusion. You have jazz fusion out there, but they were smart enough to bring in intelligent lyrics to an audience. And let's face it, in what, 72, 73, 74, when rock and roll was kind of maturing at that time as well. So you have this, perfect blend of these guys writing smart, intelligent lyrics coupled with listeners being more intelligent and looking for that and appreciating, even if you didn't know that was a jazz sounding guitar, or the piano chords were taken from one of the songs. It was still, and every time I would start this, I was like, oh, the Police. Well, am I playing? Oh, that's not the Police. But it just goes to show. I just make that point just to show you the wide range of influence that they would have going forward. And so my next song was "Do It Again," one of their biggest hits. I think it was the first Steely Dan song I ever heard when I was a kid on the radio, and it was cool because it sounded cool. I was like, "Oh, this sounds cool." Go back. You didn't really know what you were singing, but you could sing it. And it had nice, great lyrics. And so that's one of the reasons I picked it. It was one of the first, and it was perfect for AM radio because again, it wasn't heavy metal. It wasn't hard rock, but it was soft rock. And your parents could at least endure that somewhat, if your parents even listen to that, but, or at least they can endure it. So, anyway, one of the reasons I picked it.
Well, I'm not sorry. Okay. Yeah. It's a great song. That's the first track off their first album, right? I believe so. And this album, we have one, two, three. at least three songs off this. I actually had another one that I wanted to put on called Fire in the Hole. I'll have to eventually get it on something. I really like that song, but I'm like, I don't know. I can't, we got to expand it a little bit. But this is, yeah, everybody knows the song. It was probably the first of their songs that I heard too when I was a kid, just like Reeling in the Years, kind of things you'd hear on the radio, but I wasn't into them. And more about that with some other songs coming up. But, and of course, I wasn't paying attention to the lyrics. It's like, I don't care what that's about. It's very clear what it's about. It's a human condition that we kind of tend to repeat things. We get into cycles and stuff. And so it's a great song. Yeah, the core band at this point was for like the first couple of albums, it was just this band, and we'll get into it later. But they became more of a couple of core guys with session guys. But at this point, they were the set group. So I'm sorry. One more thing. This was not the first release they had. The record company released a song called Dallas that was countryish, and it was recorded during these sessions, but they all quickly decided they pulled it back because they're like, this makes them sound too countryish. We don't want people to get this idea that this doesn't really represent the rest of the stuff. And this song Dallas is not on Apple Music. I don't know if it's on Spotify, but it's like I found it on YouTube, but I don't know if there's even vinyl of it. I expect it probably worth a little something if there is, because they pulled them all back shortly after they released it. So anyway, I'm gonna add that.
All right. So, you know how oftentimes when a band has a debut or debut album, and we've talked about it before, we talked about Pink Floyd, we talked about Rush, we talked about, several of these groups, how their first albums were like, meh, meh, but we kept saying, well, they're building their things, they're learning their craft, they're building, and then by that third or fourth album, right, then it's like boom, they hit it, right? Well, that's not with Steely Dan. This first album came out the shoots with like three, four, I think four chart topping singles on this first album. So there was no doubt that when you hear this album, when you hear that sound, you're like, this is different. This is great. I like this, right? And that's what set Steely Dan on that path was right off the bat from that first album. You mentioned about three songs we'll get into that they played. One we didn't put on was Dirty Work, which is another great song. And for me, this is probably early 70s, right? So it's not like I was at 7 or 8 years old going, yeah, I love Steely Dan. No, I didn't. It wasn't until I was, 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever, and heard them on the radio and whatever. That's when I started listening more to them. So it wasn't like I was right from the get-go, a fan of Steely Dan. But in that time frame, and you can compare them to lots of different groups. For me, it has a Santana feel to it, and it has a Doobie Brothers feel to it. The early Doobie Brothers, like with "Listen to the Music" or whatever, same kind of thing. It's like, man, that's a great song, and anyway, I can't say much more about it other than great choice. I'm glad we put it on. I knew Mike would get some other deep tracks and do that. So my way forward was pretty much to try to get a couple of the hit songs that I like onto the playlist. So when Jose put this one on, I'm like, okay, there's one that I don't have to pick. So thanks, Jose, for that. But from there, it was my first selection, and as I said, I was exploring a lot of the different music, going back and listening to some of the albums, and I know I did not have Pretzel Logic, but I've heard a lot of the songs. Mike's turned us on to some. I've heard them, some of the more hit songs and stuff on the radio, but I know there were songs on that album that I didn't know, and others. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of turn about another song I was going to put on. For this one, though, I came across what's the one with the pointy hat?
Oh, it's something like the old guard or the old.
Yeah, so I hit
Yeah,
on.
it's like it's a collection.
I didn't know that that was a collection of
Old
old
regime,
songs.
I think.
Right. So it was old songs, but they were new to me. I didn't know. And so I started listening to that whole album, and I came across a song called Mock Turtle Song. And it grabbed me. It grabbed me right away. And I said, this is a cool song. I love it. I played it 5 or 6 times in a row. And so I said, this has got to, I'm going to put it on the playlist first before anyone else grabs it. Um, but the cool thing about this, and I'm just going to throw it out there and then you guys can tell me I'm full of crap or whatever. But for whatever reason, this song reminds me a little bit of a Grateful Dead type of a song, of a jam band kind of thing. It has a couple cool solos in it, xylophone in there too, which isn't normal. But the song "Playing in the Band" by Grateful Dead reminds me of this one. And they even say like in this song, like what is it? I can't even remember the lyric or whatever, but to be in the dance or in the band, right? So it kind
Yeah,
of has that same
turn to that.
join the band, right? And but it's could you, would you, join the band? And it just to me, it reminded me of playing in the band by the Grateful Dead, not from a standpoint of the chords or the sounds like or anything like that, just how it felt for me. Okay.
Yeah, I have to listen to it again with a different air. Now that you point that out, but it is one of those kind of fun-loving sounds. I could see where you're coming from. Just in listening to the snippet and remembering how it sounded. Because yeah, it's an interesting song because this song struck me as it shows off really their versatility as a band. It's like you're used to that. Okay, they're gonna play that jazz fusion with that certain guitar what am I trying to say? That guitar sound, that tone. That there's that certain tone that it's undeniable, and then you come up with this Mock Turtle song. You're like, oh yeah, these guys can do it. These guys can really, they're out there. So I want to come in and Mike will talk more about this, about the different people that were in and out of it, because it's funny that you see debates. Is this really a band when it's really just two guys doing it, throwing in a bunch of other guys? So is Steely Dan a band? Why aren't they just called a duo? But Steely Dan's a band. So anyway,
Yeah, well, and about that, it'll come up again. I don't remember what song, but Jeff Skunk Baxter, you probably all know who he is. I mean, he played the Doobie Brothers. He did tons of session work. He has a very distinctive, walrus type mustache, and he was like one of the original core members. Like I said, there were a few, but they shed all those guys after like a couple albums. And some of them came back and played on songs and stuff. So yeah, so this song, you really surprised me with this, Dave. Honestly, I didn't even know this one. I knew of it and I'd heard it, but I hadn't really paid attention because, well, first off, I didn't know there was a collection out there of these songs that were like official enough that they would put it on Apple Music. I have a CD here, and I think I maybe had an album before that of like it was like a bootleg. It's like all demos and earlier versions of stuff. Well, I guess it's a demo. And The one record I have is called Sun Mountain. I don't think that song is on this collection, but it's basically the same collection, and it also includes earlier versions of a couple of songs. One of them that's on this playlist later. But it was like, wow, yeah, no, I didn't even notice it was on the Apple Music, and you put that on. I'm like, I know that song. Wait a minute. So yeah, that's great. Here's something else. Okay, so I'm going to reveal something about myself. When in high school, I don't know if everybody had to do a senior term paper like for English or whatever, but we did, and I picked an analysis of Alice in Wonderland, and Through the Looking Glass. And I'm not talking about the Disney stuff, which is like, whatever. And it's really kind of some trippy stuff. I mean, I think partly I'm the Walrus was influenced by it and other things. These lyrics, believe it or not, were written by Lewis Carroll they're in Alice in Wonderland, and they wrote a song about it. I mean, it wrote a song to put the words to. So and he had pretty cryptic lyrics too. I saw some speculation that this song is basically whoever's narrating is trying to get this snail to, it's part of this dance. They go in the water, and then he talks about going closer to France, where water snails in France often escargot. I don't know if that's like showing a little dark side of Lewis Carroll, which there's some dark stuff in there, but anyway, I just thought it's an interesting choice, and I totally hear that playing in the band thing you're talking about. So maybe more information you guys wanted about that song, but I went from that to Caves of Altamira, which is off of Royal Scam. I think we still have 3 or 4 songs left that haven't been used on that. Um, but yeah, so this jumps in up in time about 4 or 5 albums. And obviously, as Dave mentioned, I've used a lot of songs on there. I really like this album. I don't know. I guess at different times I've had different ones that are favorites, but for some reason now, and this song is an example of why. It's I can't even tell you exactly what it is about the song. I like the horns a lot. The lyrics are again a little cryptic. My best guess on it is it's about like coming of age and kind of getting a little jaded. You know, things that were like cool and beautiful when you were a little boy. You look back on them now, and it's like, really, was that what it was? And so it's this character in this song finds a cave with drawings on it. The cave Altamira cave in Spain is like very famous for the things on the wall there. In fact, it was so famous they had to quit people going in there because on tours because the carbon dioxide was ruining, for all the people, was ruining the thing. So he's describing that, but it's anyway. Um, yeah, there's not much else I can say about it. It just for some reason when I've been listening to this, for some reason every time that kicks off, I'm like, okay, yeah, I like I don't know what it is about the song, the groove, the horns, Anyway.
Yeah, well, I think that's what their appeal is their appeal that it's not my turn.
You're good.
Gotta read the writing on the wall, man. So with this song, this is gonna sound really weird, but I mentioned I was listening to the Old Regime, right? And I listened to a lot of those songs. By the way, Sun Mountain is the last song on that one.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And it has some really cool other songs on it. But I'm listening to that thing, and I don't know if this is just a glitch. You know how sometimes songs are glitched or whatever they are on Apple Music, and I'm listening to a song called Android Warehouse. Android Warehouse. And I'm listening to it, and it's using the piano, and I'm like, I've heard that song before. That sounds familiar. And they get to that point about before the fall when they wrote it on the wall when they wasn't even at Hollywood. I'm like, that sounds like the same lyric as the Caves of Altamira. So I went back and checked, and it was. So even though the song I thought I was listening to was Android Warehouse, it was actually the Caves of Altamira. So I don't know. So I had heard it on that other album. I thought it was really cool. In fact, I was thinking about putting it on as well, but I didn't make the connection between the two until Mike put it on, and then I started listening to it a couple times. I'm like, that sounds familiar. It sounds like that one song I heard on the Old Regime. And when I go and look at the lyrics on Apple Music, they're totally different. So, but they're singing the song "Caves of Altamira." Anyway, not that matters or anything. I like the song. I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, another one from Royal Scam made the list.
So, was that like a glitch in your phone or something?
No, it's
If
what
you
it was
go,
called originally. It was like a first,
Oh,
bands will have that. They'll have like and then
okay.
it'll become a completely different song.
Yeah. Okay. And I was like, that's bizarre.
I thought maybe they were redoing. Sometimes they do that too. And if you actually listen to the Old Regime, they have songs what anyway, they have some other songs on there as well, but they strip it down and they do it a little bit differently. It's more just piano and it's not the full production in some of the cases. So go check it out. It's actually a really good album.
Uh, like I said, this is kind of like your, I think, classic Steely Dan. And then the horns, I'm always a big fan of the horns. And like I said, when you listen to these on the headphones, there's so much going on at the same time, so much beautiful music going on, you know. And of course, again, the lyrics are just outstanding. And, you know, I have to check that out. What's that? Working title. Anyway, from there, I went with that kind of another hit. And it must be ingrained because it's on Greatest Hits, and I do have Greatest Hits, and it's on Aja. So it must be one of those songs that I've listened to a lot, even though it's subconsciously, you know, I don't think I've played it in maybe 5 years, but you know, when I heard it, I was like, oh, I like this song. I remember listening to this song. I'm sure Dave probably played it because he had the album. So just a great song. It's a weird kind of song. Again, one of those lyrics about a guy, and like Mike said, their lyrics are usually doing with something like, you know, guys who are down and out, or quirky guys, or especially guys out on their luck. And this is another one who, this guy, you know, if you go down the rabbit hole of what Deacon Blues actually is, and Crimson Tide, and all this kind of stuff, like he's like the perpetual loser, and he chose it to, initially said because it was Deacon Jones, the football player, but that doesn't really make sense. And then Deacon Blues and all. Anyway, regardless of that, it's a great song, and just showed up. It's one of those songs that I've always enjoyed. That's why picked it.
Oh, Megan, sorry. Yeah, it's the album we talked about. We had two tracks previously. I know we had Asia on something. I feel like there was another one. Anyway, it's like that album is well regarded for it's just like the quality of production and the sound and the playing on it. It's probably I think their peak. They were trying to with their next album, trying to people would argue with me about this, but they're trying to do it again, and they kind of overdid it, and it basically is why they went on hiatus for a couple of decades because they were just taskmasters. And I should say, when I say they, the main two are Walter Becker and Donald Fagen. Donald Fagen does most of the singing. Anyway, this song was really when I started getting into him. It was, I think, in '77. It came on the radio a lot, and it was just it's interesting. It's a longer song. They I think they refused to have it cut down for radio, but the record company still did cut out a little bit of the sax solo or something. But it's yeah, it's a guy who like as a sax player never really makes it, you know. But he's going out. He's about to have a tragic end, but he doesn't care about what people think of him. He's gonna go and he's gonna do his thing one last time. And it's a great song. Anyway, I heard it on the radio and. I was in the car with another relative who actually, listening to the lyrics, started crying a little bit, and so that got my attention. I'm like, wow, what is this, you know? And so it wasn't long after that I really started, when I started buying records. And this was my first favorite of their records. But yeah, I could just go on and on. I love this song.
Yeah, this is a great song and a great album. I mean, there's not a bad song on this album. It's so good. Um, like you already mentioned, hit on the lyrics. I like I like the part where he says, "Learn to work the saxophone. I play just what I feel." And then I don't understand. He says, "Drink Scotch whiskey all night long and die behind the wheel." I wonder if somebody had done that, or if that's somebody they knew or whatever. But um, anyway, yeah, it's a great song, great lyrics, and it doesn't seem long when you listen to it at all. I think it's like 7.5, 8 minutes long or something, but it's a classic one. I'm glad you put it on for sure. It was on my short list of songs that I wanted to put on
Me
uh,
too.
on the playlist. So if you didn't, I would have probably, but luckily you did. Again, you did the Do It Again, you did the Deacon Blues. So Jose's carrying his own, putting on some of the hits. Mike still going deep track on us on a lot of the. But from there, then I said, okay, well, there's a couple of songs that I don't think Mike's going to put them on because they've been overplayed. But I went ahead and said I got to put these a couple songs on. So I went with Ricky Don't Lose That Number, probably one of their highest charting songs they ever had. I just love everything about the song. And even though I've heard it 150 times, putting on the playlist again and hearing it again, I went, man, I love that song. That's a great song. The structure of it, I like the piano, I like the lyrics, the vocals, everything about it is just first rate, and it's probably why it's endured the test of time so much with everything that everyone recognizes that as one of the greatest Steely Dan songs out there, whether it was commercial in nature or not. It's one of the greatest.
No, yeah, if it Do It Again wasn't the biggest, yeah, the reeling it, I mean, Ricky Don't Lose That. Everyone knew that song. You could sing along with it. It was smartly done. It sounded smart. It sounded sophisticated, even though you'd sing the lyrics, but wouldn't really know what the lyrics were about because, when you're 10, 11, 12, you don't understand it. But it's a good song. It's on AM, and it was one of those tolerable AM, FM songs that would be played that you'd be like, oh, yeah, at least I can sing along to this for a little bit. Because, I don't have a sisters, but usually females tend to like this song for whatever reason. So, not that I'm a misogynistic or sexist in any way, but for some reason, let's just say it translated a lot across the lines. So,
Yeah, the funny thing about this song, you're right. And I remember it well back in the day. It just this is when we were all much younger, and that period of my life was kind of a rough period around the house. And so there's a couple of songs that are kind of from that time period. So over the years, it never really resonated until I was much older. And now I totally get it and I like it. And there's not much yeah, there's a couple of some more trivia. So one time I was in Dallas, I think when I had gone back up there after I graduated, and I was outside a record store. If you don't know what those are, kids, look them up. There used to be these things called record stores. I guess there still aren't there. Now
oh
you
yeah,
have to pay $40 for what used to be five. But anyway, I was in the car. There's this jazz on um, what was it? KERA radio, public radio up there, and there was this jazz program. I was listening to it, and this song came on. I'm like, they're playing Steely Dan on. I mean, it's like, yeah, I get it, but it's like everything else has been like pretty hardcore jazz, and it's that piano part that dun dun dun, at the beginning, and then it goes into some completely different song, and I'm like, what the heck? And I missed it when they said what it was, but it was a great song. And it was years later I figured it out. Now I listen to it. It's called "Song for My Father" by a guy named Horace Silver. And I put the thing up on I don't know if you guys had a chance to listen to it, but I put it on the message thing. It's actually real. The whole album's really good, but they didn't have to pay any royalties. They didn't get sued, but it is clearly that same thing. There's also some weird instrument at the beginning. Sounds kind of like a vibes or something, but it's called a what is it? I guess this doesn't really matter. Oh, Jim Gordon played drums on it, like everything. It's called a flapamba is the name of this instrument.
hmm.
So whatever it is, it's kind of like vibes, whatever. Anyway, yeah, that's enough trivia. So it's my turn. Yeah. So I went into
Yeah, I'm not the only one.
uh, so yeah, one of their albums that people like when they review them, like they universally like the more established, like Rolling Stone, I guess they became established. They tended to give Steely Dan bad reviews, but when they did get good reviews, this album, which is Katie Lied, my next song's off of, for some reason got better ones. I think it's a great album. I think it's one of their more melancholy albums, and it had is it Bad Sneakers that we've had before. It also featured Michael McDonald singing on a couple of tracks, and he came on later to sing. But this song's called Doctor Wu, and it's my understanding is it's a guy that it's about a guy that his relationship is falling apart with this girl because she's gotten hooked on heroin. And like when he says, um, Katie lies, you can see it in her eyes, but imagine my surprise when I saw you. And supposedly you is she's on heroin. So again, their lyrics are cryptic. It could be any other thing, but it has that little kind of, I don't know what you call that rhythm. It's kind of a Latin that dun dun dun, dun. Anyway, yeah, love that album. If you haven't heard it, check it out.
Yeah, I've always liked this song. Like as I mentioned before, I think I had this album, and this was one of the ones I played a lot. So um, I don't know what that, some of the lyrics talk about Biscayne Bay and where the Cuban gentlemen sleep all day, and um, so and at first I thought, a lot of times when you have an album, you have like the title track. Oftentimes you might have that as a song. Well, they don't have a song called Katie Lied, but in this song, Dr. Wood, he says Katie tried, and then later on he says Katie lies. So they don't have a song about it, but this song uh, features the title of the album in some way, and so um, maybe that's what I didn't know it was about. Her being on heroin or whatever. But again, it tracks to the title of the album as well. There may be other songs on that album too that maybe relate to that. But yeah, it was on my short list again. Doctor Wu is a cool song. Um, well done. It's probably the one that Mike put on finally where I went, I know that song. Yeah, I know that one. That's one I know. So,
I don't know
Yeah, you got
that.
it. It's like I feel like my role now. It's like I'm the guy who's gonna well whatever. I don't want to be vain. I tend to do the deep tracks as yeah. Anyway, so
well, that one I knew.
Did not know. But it is a great song. But it gets into that whole discussion, and Mike was saying is the whole, you know, the smart lyrics, the over, is they call them yacht rock at some point, and they fall into this, and I think it's unfair because they're so much smarter than you don't want to disregard, like the the who is it, Christopher Cross, because they had their moments and stuff like that. I just find Steely Dan to be a little smarter than that. I don't know. That sounds bad because it sounds condescending to the other ones, like uh, not the Doobie Brothers, but the Doobie Brothers and and all the other in Chicago when they came out with this. We had that there was that moment, this supposed yacht rock, and unfortunately, Steely Dan I think gets kind of lumped into it, and songs like this that they kind of point you because of all the what's going on there. But I think it's a fantastic song, and I just think they're so smart in their compositions and what they do, and smart enough to bring in other guys and still be able to work with them and get the best out of them. And this is one of those. Versions and versatility, which leads to my song "With a Gun." Again, Dave talks about just randomly picking a song because it sounds great. That's what I did with this one. Like, oh, what is this song with a gun? And what it's and again, doesn't sound like other Steely Dan songs for the most part. Obviously there's elements of it, but it definitely doesn't have that what I would call Steely Dan vibe. It's there, but it's definitely a different song. And I like the lyrics to it, and again, Mike always talks about a little self-deprecating, a little tongue-in-cheek, a little satirical, and I thought that was part of what was the appeal of this song.
yeah, I was surprised on this one too because it's one I knew but didn't know as well. So I'm like okay, Jose. Good song. Yeah, it's kind of more of a country-ish thing. I mean, they had a couple of songs. I think Skunk Baxter tended to play the slide guitar when they'd have it. There's another one. I would have put on called Pearl of the Quarter, which is a great song, but I only have five. But yeah, it's a good song. A little story about another loser who's very dangerous loser.
I think I picked four of the songs. I don't know about that. I don't know. That's terrible.
You said something about it when I said you picked the songs and you said how do you pick them? You said dartboard. I think if you could throw a dart at any Steely Dan song and hit some kind of problematic person. I
Hey,
mean, and we don't include some of the worst on here. But anyway, yeah, great choice.
Yeah, it could have probably gone on our bad decisions playlist as well, or it's got a uh, great lyric to it. It's a shorter song, which is cool, but um, kind of like "Don't Take Me Alive," that type of thing. But I like the vibe of the song. It had a different sound to it than you're used to with the didn't have the big jazz production kind of thing with Steely Dan, and I thought it was a cool song. I liked it. It was one that when I was exploring and looking at songs, I came across it as well and thought, yeah, maybe not. I wasn't sure, but it was one where I had at least listened to it before the playlist, and so when Jose put it on, at least I was recently familiar with the song, and was glad he put it on. From there, like I said, I was going chalk with some of these main hits of Steely Dan. I wanted to make sure we get the big ones on there. So, of course, I went with "Reeling in the Years," and again, we're coming off that. I think it's off their first album too, right?
It's off of no, it's off of Pretzel Logic, right? Am I
Is it
wrong?
off?
No, it is their first album.
It
What do
is
I
their
know?
right.
Yes, it is their first album. You're
But
right.
again, it's another one of those. It was "Do It Again." It was "Reeling in the Years." It was "Dirty Work." It was. I mean, they had hit after hit off that first one. And again, this is another one that just reminds me of that early '70s sound, and with the other groups like Doobie Brothers and others. It's just a great song. Love the guitar in it too when it gets into that in between the verses and songs. Um, so it had to be on the playlist. If it hadn't been used already as one of the 11, I was going to make sure it made it out there because probably most of our listeners, all 30 of them, probably know this song, and so I wanted to have one song they knew at least.
well, good for Matt, for Dave for picking up the baton for the hits. I did not have. I mean, I knew he was gonna make it eventually. This song has to be. I mean, it's a staple now. It's in the American. People use it all the time. Or they use it not as much. Use it for retrospectives and things like that. I mean, anytime you get a retrospective, like on a TV show or something like that, reeling in the years, or some sports event or something like that. So yeah, I, one of their top hits. It is amazing how many hits did come off that. And again, I go back to that philosophy. Maybe I'm just thinking about it too much. That they just hit the sweet spot of America right at that right, or of rock and roll right at that right time, where they were, you know, we're coming off the kind of turbulent '70s and the hard rock. Now, would hard rock eventually come back after a while? Yes, of course, it never really leaves, but Steely Dan just had its moment right then and there. So, and sustained it.
And this song, yeah, I mean, it's like I challenge you to listen to an oldie station where this doesn't come on within the first hour or two. And sorry, and they it is just a staple. It's a great song. I've heard it many years, many times, and back like what was the one we do it again? It's like I remember back in those days, and I think it got more of my attention, even though I wasn't buying records at whatever first or second grade whenever this came out. The other thing I want to go back to something that you said earlier about the yacht. What is it? Yacht Rocks.
Yeah,
So I watched the documentary. I think you maybe seen it too, Jose. And I watched it today actually because I knew that Steely Dan was included in that. And I went into it like kind of resenting the term. It's like it seems almost condescending, And I know that's not when you watch the documentary, you see it was from a comedy thing, but then a lot of the people that were like use that term, they say it respectfully, They're like this did the job, This is anyway. And this band, I get, but going from that on to what you were saying about, how they influence other bands, you can totally, and they talk about it in there, you can totally see how the Doobie Brothers and, they all kind of connect because a lot of the session guys, like guys from Toto, played in all the Picaros and whatever, they played in all these different bands, and they were some of the session guys on Steely Dan stuff. So I still don't embrace the term yacht rock, but I guess I don't quite resisted it. There's I maybe have said this before. There is a phone call to Donald Fagen where he's asked if he wants to participate, asks his thoughts, and he basically says an obscenity and hangs up on the guy. Um, so there you go. Anyway, so yeah, I went from this. I took a big turn because up to this point they had a hiatus after the album Gaucho that lasted up until the early 90s. I'm sorry, the early 2000s, late 90s. Yeah, maybe it was 1999. Their next album came out. Everything, that's the last album, Two Against Nature, and it was they kind of had a little bit of a change in their sound to an extent. They still used a lot of session people, maybe a little less of the jazz. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, really. I'm not good at pegging them, but anyway, so that album came out, and so I wanted to, I want to make sure not to skip those last couple, particularly this album because it got album of the year on the Grammys. And I think if I've got this right, it was either the Grammys. Yeah, it was. Stevie Wonder gave him the prize, and they were up against, or the award, whatever, announced him. And they were up against Radiohead and Beck and I think that Marshall Mathers album. I mean, they were like, and so a lot of people resented it who were younger than me. But I thought personally, I'm like, that is awesome. They finally, I think they were late. They're one of those that took a while to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too. So I'm like, these guys are finally getting some respect. But whatever. This song is West of Hollywood, and I'm curious how you guys feel about the format of this song because there's some lyrics and a guitar solo and some more lyrics, and then the last half of the song is this. It kind of changes the arrangements, and then it's this long interaction with the drums and saxophone. And I love this song. I think it's the main part of what I like is that sax part. Um, what it's about, I don't know. I have a feeling it's another person coming to a bad end. But anyway, I'm curious what you guys think. Excuse me.
Well, I thought it was a little like you said, it was a little bit different, and I hadn't explored this album that much. I think I listened to a couple tracks on it in preparation for this, but none of the songs jumped out at me where I said, "Oh, I'm definitely going to play that song." They were good. Don't get me wrong; they were really good songs. But you know how when you have a collection, you know a lot of songs by an artist. You're like, I don't know. These are newer songs I'm not familiar with. So I listened to again. I think I listened to most of the album. Right, parts of it. I tried to click on a song and listen to it for a couple 3 minutes and see if it grabbed me, and nothing really on this whole album jumped out at me and said, "Oh, I've got to have this one." But this West of Hollywood was a cool song. It's a little longer, and I think it's just one of those things where I probably have listened to it maybe 3 times now. I probably need to listen to it a lot more and get a better appreciation for it. I probably will. You'll probably hear me saying a couple of playlists from now how great the song is because I haven't had a chance to listen to it enough and let it sink in. But it's nothing bad about it. It's just not the other the other Steely Dan stuff.
Yeah, they thought Radiohead should have won that year. Just yeah.
Hey, I'll own it. I like Radiohead.
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Although that album that was up, I think wasn't one that I was way into. So.
No, I do like the fact that they do take chances and they don't stay the course, and it is different and it is hard to get used to because you're used to a certain sound. Like we've talked about them throughout this whole podcast about their vibe and how they introduce stuff. But I think this is just another step in their direction of how they use different sounds, different instruments. Dave talked about it, Mike talked about it, the Latin influences there. You don't hear, and Do It Again, you have that the raspy, which I grew up with, of course, in my lifetime, being from Puerto Rico. You hear that a lot. And again, using the different elements, they weren't afraid to go out and try. And I really like this song. I really think it stands out above the others because it's not the Steely Dan sound, so to speak. I mean, it sounds kind of stupid. I probably do sound stupid, but at the same time, I do like it because, of course, we go back to my choice, Midnight Cruiser, and that's classic Steely Dan, classic guy on the run, classic loser, classic doing his thing at midnight. Nothing ever good happens at midnight. And again, one of those songs that people enjoy immensely, and I enjoyed it immensely. And one of the reasons I put it on, I just like the groove of it. So yeah, I like the two different, you got West Hollywood, then you come to Midnight Cruiser, which, different but the same. I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah, I like this song a lot. It's off that first album, and I don't really know what it's about, but I love the sound of it, and it's also a different singer. Is a drummer sang on this one, which I think it's the only thing he sang on. Almost everything was Donald Fagen. Walter Becker sang on, I think, one. Well, he sang on that Mock Turtle
Right.
thing. And then their first album, there was a guy, was it David Palmer? I forget the guy's name, but initially Fagan didn't want to sing. And so you got this other guy to sing, but then the guy wanted to leave the band and they were touring. So he basically took over the lyrics, the vocals. No, it's a great song. And I've never been sure. It sounds like it says Thelonious at the beginning.
Thelonious.
Is it
Yeah.
Thelonious or Thelonious with a TH?
It's a F, right? Thelonious.
Okay, see, well, that's what I saw. Okay,
Yeah. I
I
think
always
it's
wondered that one because
I was
it's not about Thelonious Monk. So that's the
yeah.
only Thelonious I've ever heard of.
I, it's obviously intentional. I think it's intentional for that reason. I think they want you to think that because of the sound of it. Anyway, just thought of that.
Well, there's nothing to add. It's a great deeper track, and again, I appreciate you guys putting both kinds of things on. And just to go back, if you hadn't have put on Reeling in the Years, I would have even have done that. By the end, if it wasn't on there, somebody had to put it on.
Yeah, you say that until we get to the last song, and then you don't have enough.
Well, look at the last two
Yeah,
songs.
okay. You got me. You got me.
So this, I don't think I had this first album. I just knew a lot of the songs, and so Midnight Cruiser was not one that I was really familiar with. But as I said, there's 4 or 5 cool songs on it. Went back and looked at the playlist, and I'm like, I'm just going to go listen to that album from cover to cover because it's probably that great. Even the B tracks and the ones that you don't know about that much. And this is another example of that. I don't think they had in their early years any real bad songs, and they're all really good songs or great songs. And so that's a testament to how great they were. From there, I went, and even though I was trying to sparse it, mix it up a little bit and play some different songs on different albums, like you said, I don't think we got anything off Gaucho, and I wanted to put something on that, and I didn't want to do like, oh, we had 4 songs from that one album or 3 songs from that one album, too many of that. But when I went and looked and listened to Pretzel Logic, I knew a lot of the songs on there. So I mean, if I look at it, okay, Ricky, Don't Lose That Number, we know that one. Any Major Dude, spoiler alert, East St. Louis, Toodaloo, that was on the Greatest Hits album that I had. Parker's Band, Mike turned us on to that one. Through the Buzz, Mike turned us on to that one. Pretzel Logic, I don't know if we've used that one. With a Gun, Jose just put on. And then there's Charlie Freak and Monkey in Your Soul. We haven't played those ones either. So I said, I don't care. I'm going back to, even though I put Ricky Don't Lose That Number on, I hit on this song called Berrytown, and I'm like, I don't know what it is about it, but I love it, and I never had heard it before. And so before Mike had a chance to put it on one time, I said, I got to go with this one. But it's mainly just piano and Donald Fagen for the most part is what the song feels like. It's pretty much just that, and it's just a simple song talking about how people over in Berrytown are different and they're not the same and that kind of thing. It's just a cute little simple song that I really, really like. And so now it's kind of my favorite Steely Dan song at the moment.
Right?
I'm singing it all the time now. I'm running around going.
Yeah, I can see that. This is your kind of song, that's for sure. And I do enjoy it. It's a great song, and you enjoy it because they do have a way of making descriptions, and it's not songs about long lost loves or things of that nature, are not complete depressing stuff, but just stories, and stuff that they're just talking about and relatable items. And this is what I can see why you'd like this song. So yeah, again, one of those songs where it captivates you. It's different, and I think that's the theme for me with Steely Dan is just up and down the versatility of it all. Like I said, headphones are essential to listen to Steely Dan.
Yeah, and this song, it was one that I had the album, but I kind of knew less of, and I came to appreciate it more later. And it's kind of interesting because they do this a lot. There's like songs like you hear "Reeling in the Years," even if you don't listen to the lyrics, it's like people rock out to it or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, okay. And this is one of those. It's like they have a ton of songs. It's like I think there's people that like listen to them for the sound of it as much as anything else. And it's like, but the lyrics behind them can be, that's a whole darker level below in a lot of cases. And this one, it's kind of a commentary on, it could be racism, it could be, judging others. The narrator in the song is completely despicable. He's totally self-justified with, you know, yeah, I just know you're from this. I can just tell by the way you look, the way you walk, that you're from that place. So we just stay away from your kind. So yeah, it's a great song, and I actually I like the commentary of it. I went to the last album next, which is Everything Must Go, and this is it the eponymous track? Is that what it's called? Where it's a whatever, same the title track. And it's yeah, I've struggled with that one. It's if you know anything about the Enron era, and even maybe the kind of the dot-com bust, it's like there were a lot of people that were making a lot of money and living, you might say, hedonistic lifestyle styles, not really caring about others, and then it all came crashing down. And some of them, like the Enron guy, is pretty despicable, situation there. So this is basically from their perspective, the day before they lock the doors, the company's going down, and there's not much else to say. But I've always kind of liked it, though. It's kind of there's humor to it, but if behind the humor, it's like some pretty dark. I use that word so much here. Whatever. Anyway, it's I like this song. I'll leave it at that. It was their last. Well, probably will be their last album because Walter Becker died, and so Donald Fagen's alive. I think he's said he's retiring. He toured, I think, one tour as Steely Dan, which he even admitted, I think, that it was money was part of the impetus for that. Um, I don't know if he's really retired from music. I saw this thing the other day. He's been showing. Do you know about Levon Helm's Midnight Ramble or whatever in Woodstock? Well, they keep that going. His family keeps it going, and they still have people show up. And he showed up at a couple of them and played. So he's still out there doing it. But boy, that's way off topic. Anyway, yeah. Oh, this is their last album, almost certainly, because it's just him now.
Yeah, like I said before, and I'd sound like a broken record, but I sampled this a little bit. I played a few minutes from each song, trying to see if something grabbed me. And this song was the one that I came to. Everything Must Go, title track, and I thought about putting this one on. The other one was that the first song. It's like they bookended the thing. The first song was called "The Last Mall," about malls closing and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a similar
Hmm.
theme to the last song. So they kind of bookended it that way. I almost put on "The Last Mall," but no, I got to give it more of a listen. It's a it's a little bit different than their earlier work, but it's a good album, and it's got some good tracks on it. I just couldn't pull the trigger and put one of them on there. So I'm glad you did.
And
Yeah,
I figured these last two albums, I should get something on because they're lesser known. So yeah, that's good.
right. I was just going to reiterate that yeah, it's good that you introduced us to the newer songs so that you do get a feel of what they were doing even towards the end. And it seems to be pretty appropriate. Everything must go. Not that they knew that that was going to happen. It's like Pink Floyd's The Final Cut. You don't know when you title something that might be it. That might be your last album. Not that. But and it's a great song, and I enjoyed it a lot. Like Dave said, I think you really got to check out the other stuff because I didn't know much about Steely Dan. I didn't do as much, hunting for different kinds of songs, which of course leads me to which everyone knows the song Black Cow. Only because again, it's one of those songs when you were a kid. It was fun to say and fun to sing. Although when you hear about the lyrics and what it's really about, it's probably not that much fun after all. But still a great song to listen to, and I think the last two kind of captivate or everything that. Actually, the last three songs, kind of cultivate and captivate everything that this playlist has to offer.
Yeah, this is another song off Asia, and it's just another example of just, I mean, it's just such a well produced album. It's just so, I don't want to say slick because that's, but it just everything just it's just there. It's as it needs to be. And that album, talk about the first album having quite a few. So this had Black Cow, which yeah, Asia, which is maybe not as much on the radio. Deacon Blues was Peg, and Josie. Both of those also on the radio a lot back in the day. There's a couple others I really like that weren't so much, but um, great. And they're definitely well into the jazz kind of side of things on this album, this song too. So I appreciate it. This was my first favorite Steely Dan album, Asia, and I think I got sick of it because I listened to it so much. I remember like buying it and sitting down with one of my buddies, and we're both just like, "Oh, man, this is awesome! Look at all these people playing on here." Whatever. A couple of nerdy kids.
Yeah, what struck me about this album, you just mentioned it, the songs, I won't reiterate that, but Peg and Josie were two just songs that I knew a lot, and they had a lot of airplay. I wanted to put on one of those, but again, we'd already put a couple songs from this album on there. What's interesting though is when I look at like, okay, this is like 1977 or whatever, and there's only 7 songs on this album. And it's not like they have like long songs. They had a couple of long songs of Asia and Deacon Blues that were in seven something. But the total amount of minutes for the whole album is 39 minutes. I'm like, wow, you can just do 7 songs in 39 minutes, and maybe they had something going on with their record producer where they had to crank out an album and it had to be quick, because 7 albums in 39 minutes, that's hardly an album. you
Yeah,
know.
but that's how it was done back then. Plus, it dealt with grooves and how many songs. But yeah, they weren't concerned with. Not like now, we're spoiled now. We get a CD if it's 39 minutes. We like, you better have outtakes and bonus cuts on this bad boy.
You got ripped off or something. Right? But no, it's a good tune. I like it. But again, I wish Peg and Josie and some others could have maybe made the list. Um, from there, my last tune was that I picked was Mike had talked about seeing Steely Dan live a couple of times. I'd never seen him. I don't think Jose's seen him. And so I said, well, let me go to their live album and see if I can pick something off there. And one song that I knew was Any Major Dude. I think it was on their, might have been on the Greatest Hits album. So I knew that one from way back. And so I listened to a couple of tracks on there, and that one grabbed me. So I went ahead and threw that one on as an ending to shows that hey, they can play live too, and they're pretty good live. And I was familiar with the song.
Yeah, well, it's a classic Steely Dan song. It's one of their hits. Live, I mean, obviously they can do it. Like you said, sure, could they polish it up in the studio? Of course, they probably did because they're probably perfectionists. But at the same time, they could show off their chops. Now, I'll just let Mike talk about seeing them live. I've never seen them live, so you could talk about their how they were live. I mean, I'm not gonna talk about Hey 19, the song. I think we all know what the song is. We've all heard it 1,000 times and probably sang it even more. So, but Mike can talk to him about what it's like to see him live.
Yeah, well, and this song, I like this song, but I'm glad you did put a live version of this on here. I saw them, well, actually, so when they started kind of coming out of their hiatus, they did a kind of mini tour that I didn't see, and they did their first live album, which was, I think, Alive in America. There's a picture of the mummy on it carrying, whatever. And then I saw them right after that, and it was great. It was at this place at Fair Park. It used to be called the Starplex or something like that. And then when I saw it there, I think it was still Starplex there. It became like the Smirnoff. Somewhere they started putting brand names on it, endorsing. But it was really good. They did. They kind of had a road band, and I don't think any of those people had played with them before. Maybe on no, I don't know if any of them were even on the last two albums, but they were really tight. And one thing, Donald Fagen, he's at the keyboards the whole time, but he has this thing. I don't know what you call it. It looks like a keyboard, but you blow through it, and it has like keys over here. It looks like it's like plastic, and then it goes into the whatever the um amplifier, whatever the synthesizer, whatever. And I think. He plays it on Babylon Sisters, maybe, and some other songs. Anyway, he played that a lot. And then I saw him the second time. I wish I'd seen him more because, they also did this thing called, I said, the Dukes of September, and another one's like the New York Rock and Blues Review or something like that, which had a bunch of other guys like Boz Scaggs and other people. They played some of their songs and they'd all cover like famous other people's songs that had a really good sound to them. But I didn't. I just saw those two tours, and I had not heard this live album. I don't know what tour, if it was one that I went at a different date, but it's very good. I think they did a very good job on this song. Um, Anything else to add? I've added too much already, except I'm curious what if you guys had any other songs you might have put on or any thoughts on that. Uh, I mentioned Fire in the Hole, and we didn't have Gaucho on here. And I think there's maybe a couple of reasons for that. One, let's see if I can find it here. The songs, they're more controversial. Like, Hey 19 is like a middle-aged guy going after a younger girl. Glamour Profession, and these are all guesses, I guess, to an extent, but a guy that's a dealer for kind of an on the way out celebrity athlete, on the decline. Gaucho's about a two-timer, I guess. I don't know. Time Out of Mind is about heroin. My Rival is about that song. I always that's one of the dark ones. That one makes me think of the whole O.J. Simpson thing. It's just like he's stalking a guy, the narrator of the song. And the last one, Third World Man, and I mean, this is a guy having a mental breakdown, and like he's having like a flashback. He's not an ex-soldier. He's just a guy that just break with reality. So he's like dressed in fatigues and running out into the street, and he's living in a bunker and all this stuff, with a gun. And so that album didn't make it on. It would have been, I thought of putting something on, but anyway. Otherwise, I'm very happy with it.
I thought about Hey 19, even though I didn't really care about what the subject was about. I just liked the
Yeah.
song, and everything. So I thought, that's one that probably would have put on. But other than that, I think we covered pretty much. Other than, and we hit on this before, but just some of the songs of those 11 that we've already used, just some great, FM, Bad Sneakers, Don't Take Me Alive, Kid Charlemagne, Through the Buzz, Haitian Divorce, My Old School, which I put on, which is a great song. Um, Aja Kings or something, or
Kings, yeah. It's
Kings,
off the first album.
and then Here at the Western World we had, and Parker's Band. So I mean, there's a bunch of other songs that we didn't put on because we'd already showcased them. So I think we did a good job of getting, again, with the exception of maybe Hey 19 and maybe Peg or Josie. I feel good about the playlist we put together.
Yeah, overall, I thought it was great. Like you said, again, I full disclosure, I know very little about Steely Dan, and I had to do a lot of catching. Again, obviously, I know something, the peripheral, but I didn't know a lot. And you get when we have stuff like this, you get to expose to so much more. Are you going to like it all? Probably not. Am I going to go out and buy a box set? Perhaps, because they're out there and you can buy them. But because of all the versatility you get of all what they do, and so it's great that we do these groups, and I like that we take some chances out there instead of just going, you indulge me with the Grateful Dead. I'm sure at some point Dave will have someone that will go, like a Dan Fogelberg, like I know very little,
Well,
but
we did Elton John. That was
yeah, of course we know a lot about Elton John. It's Steely Dan, Elton John.
Yeah.
Let's just get a lot more comfortable with Elton John than I have with Steely Dan. But still, it's great to have these, and I feel so much better for learning because again, I was initially like, that's Steely Dan, I'm gonna have to listen, and then, but as the week went on, I would keep listening to them because again, Steely Dan is not walking song. Steely Dan is you're at night hanging out, enjoying, relaxing. It's not let's get up and go. So even though sometimes, so it was a little tough for me to get into it. I admit that, but once I did, and when I would relax, in the afternoon, something, you just put the headphones on and listen to it. I was like, this is really, really great. So there you go.
I'm a complete freak because that's exactly what I listen to on the treadmill every time. It's like, I mean, I think, Bodhisattva is kind of more upbeat and stuff. I guess you could kind of get a pace going, but no, I get it. Just real quick back to what you said, Dave, all those other songs. If we had not done any of those songs, my contributions to this playlist would be completely different. I mean, Kid Charlemagne would be on here, a bunch of the others. So, but that said, I'm happy with this. Very happy with it. I really appreciate you guys. I guess maybe Dave, you suggested. I forget who suggested it, but it's really nice for you guys to indulge me. And like you said, Grateful Dead, and we'll have something. You can have another one besides Elton John there, Dave. Moody Blues, perhaps. I don't know.
maybe,
Supertramp.
yeah.
Even what's it, Gordon Lightfoot. That would
Uh,
take some research on my part, but
Gordon Lightfoot, yeah.
Try get that on the table. I'm just kidding.
we could do another covers because the Carpenters did a cover of Calling Occupants. Believe it or not, they did. All right,
So
maybe not.
maybe we'll have to do I was thinking about this, and I know this isn't part of this thing, but I think we like coming up with new artists and new songs. So maybe we do a playlist where we have not picked that artist, or a couple of playlists where we know that, because and I went through my list and I'm like, there's 100 of them that we haven't used. And so you just mentioned like the Carpenters. We actually haven't played a Carpenter song
No?
at all. But hey, spoiler alert, next playlist might be 1976. Might be a good time for the Carpenters.
That's the way to tease them, Dave.
Well, until that day, we're signing off here for our 75th playlist. Thanks again, guys, and thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.